Okay, well, welcome to week 2 of drugs and crime, and I'm going to spend some time going over the assignment and maybe talk a little bit about the topic. Then I'm going to share something with you that I did today that was very interesting, um, and I'll talk to you about that. And it was very interesting. And I'm going to be sharing just a little bit of it today, but I'm waiting for them to send me more details before I give you all the information. But it was you're going to like it. It's very on point with what this class is all about. Okay, let's move Shannon up a little bit there. There we go. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this additional course information. I'm not going to go over instructor information because you already know about that. I am going to remind you that rubrics are located in each written assignment. And in this course, the written assignments are the course project. So you have one for this week as you had one last week. Remind you that the lectures take place every Tuesday now, and today, as I said, beginning the 14th, 6:30 p.m. Central to 7:30, and it may end before that, depends. And I stated you must attend or listen to the archive. Each week there'll be a keyword given, and that keyword is given to let me know that you were there. So I usually remember who's there anyway, but I still, like to see the keywords so you can put that in so I can register your grade. Okay, so I'm going to skip all these other announcements, jump right into the week 2 announcement. It says we're going to talk about the legislation, history of legislation regulating drug use and abuse. That falls right into what I'm going to talk about, what I experienced today. And so you had to read chapters 5 and 8 of the text. I, in turn, sent you the PowerPoints, which I don't use in lectures because if you pay attention, they're very detailed, and they also provide like a summary of what is in each chapter. So you can make sure that you read that. So I sent that out Sunday, and that's generally when I'll try to send it out to you guys, Sundays, so that you'll have it. Regulation of drug precursors, regulation of synthetic drugs, Freakonomics of crack dealing, and federal drug activity laws, a little bit of the sections that we'll be covering tonight. Your initial post was due tonight, or is due tonight, at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. The topic is mandatory sentencing for drug-related crimes. Very interesting scenario presented, and many of you have posted some very interesting posts. I've made a few comments to some, and then I shared a few other things with students. The reply post to the same topic is due this Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then you're going to complete the course project, which is your written assignment, other than the discussion. What is heroin? Oh, and then there's the quiz. There is the quiz. So in order to maximize your quiz, it's good for you to go through all the material, because these assignments, the quiz and the course project, are not due until Sunday. So you start working on the course project, but you also, and actually, from what we talked about last week and some of the things that I'll be sharing with you, we will be discussing the topic of heroin. But to prepare for the quiz, a good source to use is to review the PowerPoints, and then what's in the module itself, which I'm going to be talking about, okay? And then your written assignments I do every Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. You already know my motto. You know about adversity is a springboard to success, and you know that I'm not just throwing out a term. It actually is relevant to me, and I make it relevant to my students as well, okay? Remember, you have resources in the course on the home page to help you with APA and the writing process and various other things. If you have a question, you know what to do. If you don't know, then you need to go back to the course home page and know who to contact. And whoops, don't want to do that. Close that. That's the grade center. I don't want to do that. So what I want to do is go to the tools. Here we go, and that'll open up. That's one of the ways. Well, that's one of the ways I open up the course calendar. You guys can open up another way. And again, it shows you what the reading assignment is, and it repeats as you click on it what I just said a few minutes ago. Okay. And then your initial post, same thing, you click on it, it repeats the topic, tells you when it is due. Then your live lecture is today. Okay. Then your reply post this Saturday. And then your course project, which I'm going to go over in details from the rubric and the module itself, so you will be able to understand that. There's a few of you guys, some of you guys say, well, you went over the material, I could read that. I said, well, yeah, but there are times when students miss a lot of things, so I try to cover them as well. And most of my students say, yeah, I appreciate that because it helps keep them focused, keeps you focused. And then your quiz, remind you, it's a timed quiz. It's a time quiz, okay? All right. Which you will have a quiz every week. So you want to make sure that you get those done. Okay, and then after that, that's due Sunday night. And again, it tells you when, oh, that's week 3. Yeah, so week 2. There it is right there. All right. I don't know what that module 3. Oh, I know. Yeah, course project. Okay, that's this one is what is heroin. So you're going to continue with the theme of heroin next week as well. Okay, and why is module 4 in there? 2, 3. Give me a second here. Module 2. Okay, let's do. Okay, the 19th. Okay. Oh no. Oh, I know why I did that. Okay. Okay, I already know. Yeah, let's do Sunday. Okay. I had to remember that's the 19th coming up because we operated last Sunday with the 12th. And all you had was the quiz, but this week you will have the first course project and then after that. So, all right. So any concerns, feel free to reach out to me. Let's get to our week. Again, I reminded you about the drugs and crime course guide. I'm not going to click on it because I told you, use it. It is a very valuable tool that the people put together at this college to help each and every one of our students who are in this course. Let's look at what again you have for assignments. Okay, the course project. And then it tells you, I'm not going to read this whole fact scenario, but it tells you certain things that are required. You see the highlighted stuff? Tells you the length. It tells you up here instructions for the first part of this project. Additional research to learn more about the source and origin of heroin. This is a research course, okay? Then you deal with these issues, and you must include at least 3 credible, reliable resources other than your textbook. So you're required to conduct research. Don't rely on Wikipedia either, because you'll lose points for that. And a student asked me already, does the cover page and the reference page count as the 3 pages? And the answer is absolutely, positively no. The 3 pages we're talking about is content. And it needs to be 3 pages, not 1.5, not 2.5. You will lose points. Okay? And it says here, the cover page and reference pages are not included in the page requirement. All right? And then it reminds you again of some resources in that drugs and crime course guide that I shared with you a few minutes ago. Okay? Then there's your discussion post. I'm not going to go over that. And then there's your timed quiz. Okay? It's a 30-minute quiz. And you want to make sure that you do everything you're supposed to do there. All right? So you have that quiz available to you. So now let's go back. Take a look at. If you have any questions ever, stop me, slow me down, ask me to repeat something, and I'll be happy to stop and deal with it. Okay, our objectives are to deal with the laws dealing with the sale, manufacture, and use of alcohol, opium, cocaine, marijuana, and synthetic drugs, the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970, and then what mandatory sentence has done and penalties and so forth has done to deal with the problem that we have here. Okay, so again, I told you we're going to cover these sections all the way down here. And then, again, these are the assignments at the bottom here. Okay. So, again, we always keep reminding you about the Drugs and Crime Course Guide. Very valuable source. Very valuable source. Okay, so now, drugs, we have an epidemic going, people. And these 4 that they mentioned progressively, marijuana has been kind of around since, I mean, in the 60s. It was pretty popular. You know, people use that, and then sometimes they use other drugs. But marijuana, also referred to as Mary Jane, and some other names. There was a singer, Rick James. He did a song called Mary Jane, and it was there was a candy called Mary Jane, but it wasn't about that. It was about marijuana. And then, you know, like maybe sometime after that, cocaine came about. Now, here's the deal. And then heroin is now pretty, deal with that opioid issue right now. I'm going to talk about that a little later. These are things that are based on plants. So marijuana, cocaine, and heroin, which came from plants. Methamphetamine, meth on the other hand, is cooked by combining household chemicals. And people actually use that and mix that with other things. And so what has happened here, let's go back to marijuana. Marijuana has reached the stage now that, as you probably should know, there are several states who have legalized it. One is Colorado, maybe I think California also. But I know that these states are out west. I don't know for sure which states are out east. I will say that in Illinois it hasn't happened, but they're working on getting it. But here's the deal. Many of the legislators, and even at the federal level, are working to legalize marijuana because, as you should know, that even though the states have passed the laws allowing marijuana, the federal law is still against marijuana. So what does that mean? In your state, the state authorities uh, don't have to enforce it because it's legal, but the feds can. And generally, the feds don't bother anybody with that unless it's a large quantity. And with marijuana, even in the states where it's legal, it is regulated and controlled, kind of on the same vein as the way cigarettes operate, but a little bit more stringent, and alcohol maybe. But the truth of the matter is that even the laws are causing the societal change to take marijuana off of the, I think it's Schedule 1 off the top of my head, remove it from that. And then also, you know that marijuana has been used for people who have medical conditions. One of the common one is blindness, and people have been able to get that to deal with their sight issues, glaucoma specifically. And then cocaine. So cocaine came, it was a powdery thing, and you know, people really got into using cocaine, and they would snort that pretty much. But then came along the chemical mix, or cooked, which involves other processes to create crack cocaine. And crack cocaine is cheap to get. You get a rock, they call it. I was the village attorney in a town in Illinois, and they used to call this town the crack cocaine capital of the South Suburbs. It was a very serious problem. I dealt with seeing police corruption. I, being the village attorney, village prosecutor, investigator, and a police officer, and dealing with the internal affairs, I saw a whole lot of stuff. But anyway, the crack is cooked, as we talk about getting into meth, but I'm going to hold off on that. But the fact of the matter is that cocaine is cooked on stoves and using various chemicals. And what happens is it turns into a rock, which people will melt that down with that in there, and then they will smoke it. They will smoke it most of the time. But then we come to heroin. Now we're here. That's where we are right now, where there's deaths that are taking place from over use and addiction. And this is, excuse me, generally with a needle. People inject heroin, and they inject it in all parts of their bodies. I mean, you can think of any part of your body, and heroin has been injected. And so these are from plants. Then we get to the meth, which is cooked. It is not grown. Combining, as it says already, they use regular household products. And it's an easy thing to do. Think about this. Here's the deal. Putting in your body paint thinner, ammonia, iodine crystals, red phosphorus, and think about this. Drano, you know what Drano is? It's drain cleaner. This is all part of meth. And batteries use lithium. You know, you have the lithium batteries, and so they take from that as well. And then some other ingredients that are found in cold medicine. Simple. So here's the deal. You have some products that are simple, And we in law enforcement discovered that when a person goes to the store and they're buying certain of these things, especially in big quantities, it's a red flag. It's a red flag, and it's generally that they're in the meth manufacturing business and distribution. So anyway, when these things are all put together here and then they're cooked, it says they change and make a powder, a substance that is injected by smoking, snorting, or injection. And that's what happens too with crack. So even though it's simple, it's extremely dangerous and can create death and alter your mind. There have been explosions that take place in these labs, and people get this stuff and have it in their cars, and as it says, in the trunks of the cars. Find in abandoned buildings. I know when I was in Ford Heights, they had crack houses that they were using, and these were abandoned houses, and people would move into them, and then they would cook it. They'd get the stove, or sometimes they'd use sterno, like use the heat stuff when you have catering, and they would make this stuff, and it was something. So this has reached the stage where it's very serious. It's not very expensive, and so because of that, then laws start getting passed to combat methamphetamine epidemic. One of the earliest ones, as it states here, and in your readings, is 2005, and this actually regulates drugstores, pretty much. It says requires retailers of non-prescription products containing pseudoephedrine, that's the chemical that's in cough medicine itself, and these other drugs are locked. You remember when you could just go to the shelf and you get some of these things, and then now all of a sudden you have to ask. They're not written with a prescription. However, they are not left out. Reason is because, well, okay, I'm going to ask you if you can tell me, and you can type it in. Why do you think that they put it behind the counter? Why? What were they trying to do? No, not to stop the sales, because people could still buy them. But why did they put it behind the counter? No, not out of the reach of youth, but because of what other reason? That's part of it, though. But what do you think is a big reason? How about shoplifting? How about shoplifting? Yeah, think about that. When you are a addict or a person who's addicted, you commit crime to satisfy. And one of the common crimes is theft, retail theft. And a lot of times it's theft of things like this, particularly if you're in the manufacturing, you'll get it on larger quantities. But there are people who they make their own stuff, and so as a result, to try to you're right, get control of it, they decided to take it. Just like, for example, in a lot of stores, there are things that they have. You have to get a key. It's not even in a locked cabinet. It's on a hanger, and lock key, you can't slide it out. Remember, like before, you could slide some stuff out. You still can some, but they put that on there because it's a valuable item. But with things like this, if they had it out, they would put it in that instance. So anyway, the bottom line is they put it behind the counter or in a locked cabinet. And then you had to log in for purchases. So that kept record of what you were buying, even if it wasn't prescribed. So they were trying to cut into the labs and stuff like that. But it says Mexican drug traffickers have become the primary manufacturer and distribution of meth and methamphetamine throughout the United States. So in our state, we have passed a law restricting the purchase of these items. And the question is, have these had an impact on the related criminal activity? And my answer is no. And the reason why is because you have to remove the, how should I say, the consumer, the person who, if there's no one or market for your stuff, then you're not going to manufacture it and you're not going to distribute it. But if, as you already know, these are highly addictive drugs and your body craves for them, then you're going to continue to get them, and by any means necessary, and you're going to commit crimes, and then the individuals who are hooked are regular customers because they got to have it. They have to have it in order to exist. So what we will talk about in a little bit is something that I found out today that's beneficial to helping people. And just hold on to that. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, so hold that for a moment. So now let's move to synthetic drugs, chemical process that are not derived from plants, but are manufactured. Again, synthetic drugs are very, 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 very rampant in this country, and the law can't keep up with what is happening here. Synthetic cannabinoids, it says, are chemical compounds created in a lab and sold as legal alternatives. So they're worse, but people think that they're getting marijuana. In other words, marijuana is laced with stuff, and that they change the substance of what the plant is and add other things to put it out there. And then the market out there, they have names like K2 and Spice. On the internet, you can get it on the internet, people, and in convenience stores you can get these kind of things, and they're smuggled into the United States, but people are able to actually buy them, and and then the other thing is, notice this point in here: the chemical property cannot be detected in drug screens or urinalysis. So guess what? People who know they have to do drops, it doesn't pick it up. And that's a scary, scary thought. So people who on probation, parole, or either if you're going for employment or something like that, you can still be on these synthetic cannabinoids, and they're not going to be detected on a drug test. And so that's scary, because what's going to happen is you could commit theft at your job and other things that happen. And so it creates a very serious problem. People overdose on them. They use them to the point that there are heart attacks that take place. And it says here, raises your heart, raise your blood pressure, can put you in an unconscious state, vomiting, seizures, hallucinations. And what it does is it destroys your quality of life, and it turns you into a zombie. So the Synthetic Drug Abuse Prevention Act came about, and it lists these synthetic cannabinoids and into Schedule 1, which is where you got some very serious stuff. And most of the states have passed laws relating to this synthetic stuff. And The bottom line is that we still got a long ways to go, and I'll explain to you the laws being passed. You keep hearing the laws being passed. Again, I will talk about what I learned today and tie it into this, but hang in there. So let's talk about some more of these things. Bath salts. It's not what you think it is, and um, people uh, they think it's like Epsom salt. No, no, they're called bath salts or plant food or air freshener to get the person to get it. But these are you inject them into your body by snorting them. You see the lines that are, and you'll put like a dollar bill, and then you'll put it into one nostril and then the other. You know what? I was telling somebody the other day, I says, I couldn't get caught with that kind of thing because I don't like nothing going down my nose. Every time my nose drops and all that, man, I get upset about those things because you know what happens? They go down your nose and then they drop down. Yeah, they drop down into your mouth. But no, you're not going to get me there. But anyway, the real deal here is that people are finding cheap ways to get high, and they're creating, like I said, we have these overdose, heart attacks, um, nosebleeds, sweating, nausea, vomiting, all of these things. So, um, and it puts you into a state, and they in 212 an incident called the zombie attack. But this person was naked and high on these salts, and chewed on the face of a homeless man. I mean, it's really something because it puts you in a state of mind where you are animalistic and you are actually destroying yourself. DEA in 2011 published a report in the Federal Register. Federal Register, by the way, is a publication that tells you about the makeup of uh, drugs and so forth, what's in there, and those kind of things. So they included bath salts in there with the various names, and the bottom line is that it's problematic because it's highly, highly, highly addictive. And so laws have been continued to be passed to try to stop the flow of these things, which is all good and well, but you need to know that even when you legalize something, there's going to be a black market, they call it, where there's going to be some illegal activity that still is going to operate on it. And so there's only one thing left that needs to be worked on, and I keep saying I'm going to talk about it, and the reason why I do is because there is something that needs to be done. And so then the laws just getting passed and passed and passed. I deliver me from that. I've been around long enough. And then there is this TED Talk about crack dealing, and it's a video. I'm gonna just put a little bit of it on, and then I'm gonna get out of it because I want you to. Because it's a 21-minute video, but I'm gonna just give you some little pieces of it. I'm gonna take my headphones off. Not about my own tragedy, but other people's tragedy. It's a lot easier to be lighthearted about other people's tragedy than your own. I don't want to keep it in the spirit of comedy. So if you believe the media account, being a drug dealer in the height of the crack cocaine epidemic was a very glamorous life, in the words of Virginia Pastel. There's money, there's drugs, guns, women, you name it, jewelry, bling bling. It had it all. What I'm going to
that, in fact, based on 10 years of research, a unique opportunity to go inside a gang, to see the actual books, the financial records of the gang, that the answer turns out not to be that being in the gang was a glamorous life, but I think more realistically, that being in a gang, selling drugs for a gang, is perhaps the worst job in all of America. And that's what I'd like to convince you of today. Okay, so there's three things I want to do. First, I want to explain how and why crack cocaine had such a profound influence on inner city gangs. Secondly, I want to tell you how somebody like me came to be able to see the inner workings of a gang. It's an interesting story, I think. And then third, I want to tell you in a very superficial way about some of the things we found when we actually got to look at the financial records, the books of the gang. Okay, so before I do that, just one warning, which is that this presentation has been rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America. It contains adult themes, adult language. Given who's up on the stage, you'll be delighted to know that, in fact, there'll be no nudity, barring a unexpected wardrobe malfunction time. Okay, so let me start by talking about crack cocaine and how it transformed the gang. Okay, and to do that, you have to actually go back to a time before crack cocaine in the early 80s and look at it from the perspective of a gang leader. Okay, so being a gang leader in the inner city wasn't such a bad deal in the mid-'80s, the early 80s, let me say. Now, you had a lot of power, you got to beat people up, you got a lot of prestige, a lot of respect. But the thing is, there was no money in it. Okay? The gang had no way to make money. You couldn't charge dues to the people in the gang because the people in the gang didn't have any money. You couldn't really make any money selling marijuana. Marijuana's too cheap, it turns out. There's just no market for being. You can't get rich selling marijuana. You couldn't sell cocaine. So cocaine's a great product, powder cocaine, but you got to know rich white people. And most of the inner city gang members didn't know any rich white people. They couldn't sell that market. You couldn't really do petty crime either, because a petty crime is a terrible way to make a living. So as a result, as a gang leader, you had, power, it's pretty good life. But the thing was, at the end, you were living at home with your mother. And so it wasn't really a career. It was something that, there were limits to how powerful and important you could be if you had to live at home with your mother. Okay. Then along comes crack cocaine. Okay. And in the words of Malcolm Gladwell, crack cocaine was the extra chunky version of tomato sauce for the okay? Because crack cocaine was an unbelievable innovation. I don't have time to talk about it today. But if you think about it, I would say that in the last 25 years, of every invention or innovation that's occurred in this country, the biggest one in terms of impact on the well-being of people who live in the inner city was crack cocaine. Okay, for the worse, not for the better, for the worse. It had a huge impact on life. So what was it about crack cocaine? It was a brilliant way of getting the brain high. Okay, because you could smoke crackine and you can smoke crack cocaine. You can't smoke powder cocaine. And smoking is a much more efficient mechanism for delivering a high than is snorting it. And it turned out there was this audience that didn't know it wanted crack cocaine, but when it came, it really did. And it was a perfect drug you could sell buy the cocaine that went in for $1, sell it for $5, highly addictive. The high was very short. So for 15 minutes, you get this great high. And then when you come down, all you want to do is get high again. Okay, it created a wonderful market. And for the people who were there running the gang, it was a great way, seemingly, to make a lot of money, at least for the people at the top. Okay, so this is where we enter this. Not really me. I'm really a big player in all this. My co-author, Sudhir Venkatesh, is the maker of this. Okay, so he was a math major in college who had a good heart and decided he wanted to get a sociology PhD. Came to the University of Chicago. So for 3 months before he came to Chicago, he had spent following the Grateful Dead. And in his own words, he looked like a freak. Okay, he's a South Asian, very dark-skinned South Asian, big man, and he has hair, in his words, down to his ass. Okay, he defied all kinds of boundaries. Was he black or white? Was he man or woman? It was really a curious sight to be seen. So he showed up at the University of Chicago, and the famous sociologist William Julius Wilson was doing a book that involved surveying people all across Chicago. And he took one look at Sudhir, who was going to go do some surveys for him, and decided he knew exactly the place to send him, which was one of the toughest, most notorious housing projects, not just in Chicago, but the entire United States. So Sadir, the suburban boy who never really been in the inner city, definitely took his clipboard and walks down to this housing project, gets to the first building. The first building, well, there's nobody there, but he hears some voices up in the stairwell. And so he climbs up the stairwell, and he comes around the corner and finds a group of young African American men playing dice. Okay. This is about 1990, peak of the crack addiction epidemic. This is a very dangerous job being in a game. You don't like to be surprised. You don't like to be surprised by people come around the corner, and the mantra was shoot first, ask questions later. Okay. Now Sadir was lucky. He was such a freak, and that clipboard probably saved his life because I figured no other rival gang member would be coming up to shoot at him with the clipboard. So his screen was not particularly warm, but they did say, well, okay, let's hear your questions on your survey. So I kid you not, the first question on the survey that he was sent to ask was, how do you feel about people who are black and white? Makes you wonder about academics. So the choice of answers was very good. Yeah. What Sadir found out is in fact that the real answer was a problem. Survey was not in the end going to be what got Sadir off the hook. Right. He was held hostage overnight. It's real. Well, there's a lot of gunfire. There were a lot of philosophical discussions he had with the gang members. The morning the gang leader arrived, checked out Sadir, decided he wasn't no threat, and they let him go home. So Sadir went home, took a shower, took a nap. And you and I probably faced with this situation would think, well, I guess I'm going to write my dissertation on the Grateful Dead. I've been following the last 3 months. Sadir, on the other hand, got right back, walked down to the housing project, went up to the floor, the second floor, and said, hey guys, I had so much fun hanging out with you last night. I wonder if I could do it again tonight. And that was the beginning of what turned out to be a beautiful relationship that involved Sadir living in the housing project on and off for 10 years, hanging out in crack houses, going to jail with the gang members, having the car window shot out of his car, having the police break into his apartment, steal his computer disks, you name it. But ultimately, the story has a happy ending for Sadir, who became one of the most respected sociologists in the country. And especially for me, as I sat in my office with my Excel spreadsheet open, waiting for Sadir to come and deliver to me the latest load of data that he would get from the game. One of the most unequal co-authoring relationships ever, but I was glad to be the beneficiary of it. Okay. What do we find? What do we find in the game? Well, let me say one thing. So what we really got access to everybody in the game. We got it inside of the game, from the very bottom up to the very top. They trusted Sadir in ways that really no academic had ever, or really anybody, any outsider had ever trust in this game. And to the point where they actually opened up, what's interesting for me is their books, their financial records that they kept, and they unveiled this. And we not only could study them, but we could ask the questions about what we did. So if I have to kind of summarize very quickly in the short time I have, what the sort of the bottom line of what I take away from the gang is that if I had to draw a parallel between the gang and any other organization, it would be that the gang is just like McDonald's, okay, in a lot of different respects, the restaurant McDonald's. Okay, so first, in one way, which isn't maybe the most interesting way, but it's a good way to start, is in the way it's organized, the hierarchy of gang, the way it looks. So here's what the org chart of the gang looks like. I don't know if any of you know very much about org charts, but if you were to kind of strip down and simplify McDonald's org chart, this is exactly what the org chart will look like. Now, it's amazing, but the top level of the gang, they actually call themselves the board of directors. Okay? And Sadir says, it's not like these guys had a very sophisticated kind of view of like what happened in American corporate life, but they had seen movies like Wall Street, and they had learned like a little bit about what it was like to be in the real world. Now, below that board of directors, you've got the essentially what a regional VP who controls the south of Chicago, the west side of Chicago. Now, Sadir got to know very well the guy who had the unfortunate assignment of trying to take the Iowa franchise, which it turned out that this black gang was not one of the more brilliant financial having, the local gangs, the 4 square block by 4 square block areas, they're just like the guys in Substance who are running the McDonald's. They are the entrepreneurs. They get the exclusive property rights to control the drug selling. They get the name of the gang behind them for merchandising and marketing. And they're the ones who basically make the profit or lose the profit depending on how good they are at running the business. Now, the group I really want you to think about, though, are the ones at the bottom, the foot soldiers. Okay, these are the teenagers typically who'd be standing out on the street corners selling the drugs. Extremely dangerous work. And it's important to note that almost all of the weight, all of the people in this organization are at the bottom. It's just like McDonald's. So in a sense, the foot soldiers are a lot like the people who are taking the order at McDonald's. And it's not just by chance they're like them. In fact, in these neighborhoods, they'd be the same people. So the same kids who were working in the gang were actually, at the very same time, they would just be working part-time at a place like McDonald's. Okay, which already, I think, foreshadows the main result that I'm talking about what a crappy job it was being in the gang. Because obviously, if being in the gang was such a wonderful, lucrative job, why not go with these guys in moonlight at McDonald's? Okay, so what do the wages look like? So you might be surprised, but based on the actual, being able to talk to them and to see their records, this is what it looks like in terms of the wages. The hourly wage the foot soldiers were earning was $3.50 an hour. It was below the minimum wage. Okay, and this is well documented. It's easy to see by the patterns of consumption they have. It really is not fiction, it's fact. There was very little money in the gang, especially at the bottom. Now, if you manage to rise up, say, and be that local leader, the guy who's equivalent of the McDonald's franchisee, you'd be making $100,000 a year. And that, in some ways, was the best job you could hope to get if you were growing up in one of these neighborhoods as a young black male. If you manage to rise to the very top, $200,000 or $400,000 a year is what you'd hope to make. Truly, you would be a great success story. And one of the sad parts of this is that, indeed, among the many other ramifications of crack cocaine, is that the most talented individuals in these communities, this is what they were striving for. They weren't trying to make it in legitimate ways because there were no legitimate channels out. This was the best way out. It actually was the right choice, probably, to try to make it out this way. When you look at this, the relationship with McDonald's breaks down here. The money looks about the same. Why is it such a bad job? Well, the reason it's such a bad job is that there's somebody shooting at you a lot of the time. Okay? So when shooting at you, what are the death rates? Okay? We found in our gang, and admittedly, this was not really sort of a standard situation. This was a game of a time of intense violence, of a lot of gang wars. This gang actually became quite successful, but there were costs. And so the death rate, not to mention the rate of being arrested, sent to prison, being wounded, the death rate in our sample was 7% per person per year. You're in the gang for 4 years, you expect to die with about a 25% likelihood. Okay? That is about as high as you can get. So this, for comparison's purposes, let's think about some other walk of life where you may expect might be extremely risky. Like let's say that you were a murderer and you were convicted of murder and you're sent to death row. Turns out the death rates on death row from all causes including execution, 2% a year. Okay? So it's a lot safer being on death row than selling drugs out on the street. Okay? That makes you pause, gives you some pause. And those of you who believe that the death penalty is going to have an enormous deterrent effect on crime. Now, to give you a sense of just how bad the inner city was during crack, I'm not really talking about, I'm not really focusing on the negative, but really there's another story to tell you there. If you look at the death rates just of random young black males growing up in the inner city in the United States, the death rates during crack were about 1%. That's extremely high. This is violent death. It's unbelievable. And so, to put it into perspective, if you compare this to the soldiers in Iraq, for instance, right now, fighting the war, 0.5%. So in some very literal way, the young black men who were growing up in this country were living in a war zone, very much in the sense of the way that the soldiers over in Iraq are fighting a war. Okay, so why in the world, you might ask, would anybody be willing to stand out on the street corner selling drugs for $3.50 an hour with a 25% chance of dying over the next 4 years? Why would they do that? Okay, and I think there are a couple answers. I think be the gang with a rite of passage. That the young people controlled the gang, that as you got older, you dropped out of the gang. Okay? So what happened was the people who happened to be in the right place at the right time, the people who happened to be leading the gang in the mid to late 80s became very, very wealthy. And so the logical thing to think was that, well, the next generation, so they're going to age out of the game like everybody always does, and the next generation is going to take over and get the wealth. Okay? So there's striking similarities, I think, to the internet boom. Right? The first set of people in Silicon Valley got very, very rich. And then all my friends said, maybe I should go do that too. And they were very cheap for stock options that never came. Okay? And sometimes that's what happened exactly to the set of people we were looking at, is that they were willing to start at the bottom, just like, say, a lawyer at a law firm. A first-year lawyer is willing to start at the bottom, work 80-hour weeks for half the money, because they think they're going to make partner. But what happened was the rules changed, and they never got to make partner. Indeed, the same people who were running all of the major gangs in the late 1980s are still running the major gangs in Chicago today. They never passed on any of the wealth. So everybody got stuck at that $3.50 an hour job, and it turned out to be a disaster. The other thing the gang was very, very good at was marketing and trickery. And so, for instance, one thing the gang would do is, the gang leaders would have big entourages, and they drive fancy cars and have fancy jewelry. So what Shadir eventually realized as he hung out with them more, that really they didn't own those cars; they just leased them because they could afford to own the fancy cars, and they didn't really have gold jewelry; they had gold-plated jewelry. It goes back to the real versus the fake real. And really, they did all sorts of things to trick the young people into thinking what a great deal the game was going to be. So, for instance, they would give a 14-year-old kid, they'd give them a whole, roll of bills to hold. The 14-year-old kid would say, oh, well, Hugh said to his friends, hey, look at all the money I got in the gang. It wasn't his money until he spent it, and then essentially he was in debt to the gang and was sort of an indentured servant for a while. Okay, so I have a couple minutes. Let me do one last thing I had thought I'd have time to do, which is to talk about what we learn more generally about economics from the study of the game. Okay? So economists tend to talk in technical words. Often our theories fail quite miserably when we go over data. But actually what's kind of interesting is that in this setting, it turned out that some of the economic theories that worked not so well in the real economy work very well in the drug economy. Sometimes because theories have done better capitalism. Here's an economic principle. This is one of the basic ideas in labor economics. It's called a compensating differential. It's the idea that basically the incremental wages that a worker requires to make them indifferent between performing two tasks, one which is more unpleasant than the other. That's what you call a compensating differential. It's why we think garbage men might be paid more than people who work in parks. Okay? So in the words of the gang, one of the members of the gang, I think, makes this clear. So it turns out, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. It turns out in the gang, when there's a war going on, that they actually pay the foot soldiers twice as much money. Okay, it's exactly this concept, because they're not willing to be at risk. So here's, in the words of the gang member, captures it quite nicely. He says, "Would you stand around here when all this shit, that means shooting, if all this shit's going on? No, right. So if I'm going to be asked to put my life on the line, then front me the cash, man." So essentially, I think the gang member says it much more articulately than does the economist about what's going on. Another one. So economists talk about game theory, that every two-person game has a Nash equilibrium. Here's the translation you get from the gang member. They're talking about the decision of why they don't go shoot. One thing that turns out to be a great business tactic in the gang is to go and just shoot in the air, just shoot guns in the other gang's territory. All the people are afraid to go by the thugs there, they're going to come with gun here. So, but here's what he says about why they don't do that. He says, if we start shooting around there in the other gang's territory, nobody, and I mean you dig it, nobody's going to step on their turf. But we got to be careful, because they can shoot around here too, and then we all fucked. Okay? So that's exactly the same concept. But then again, sometimes economists get it wrong. So one thing we observed in the data is that it looked like, in terms of the gang leader always got paid. Okay? He always, no matter how bad it was economically, he always got himself paid. So we had some theories related to cash flow and lack of access to capital markets and things like that. And then we asked the gang member, well, why did you always get paid? Your workers don't always get paid. His response is, you got all these niggers below you who want your job, you dig? If you start taking losses, you must weaken shit. Okay? I thought about it. I said, CEOs often pay themselves $1 million bonuses even when companies are losing a lot of money. And it never really occurred to economists that this idea of weakening shit could really be important. So maybe weakening shit is an important hypothesis to be.
Well, this video kind of says it all. When I was a kid, they had gangs, and then there was no crack, and we didn't have all the problems. But when crack came into being, it was a cheap high, and the marketing techniques, and people are surprised at how organized. When I was an attorney for the gangs, it went exactly like that. I used to get paid by the gangs, and no problems. I didn't have any problems at all. And it was there's oftentimes I'd get in no problems with them, and I'd have other clients that weren't and have problems. But anyway, my point of the matter is that the leaders themselves trick these young people, and that's what's happening even today. They're the ones in harm's way. It's just like, for example, if you operate a construction company, and you're the CEO and head. Well, you don't really work. You get the contract money and so forth, then you divvy it down to the workers. So who get injured? Those who are the workers themselves. And that's the same kind of thing. And the other part that he didn't talk about is that they become very expendable. They use each other, sacrifice, they'll commit a crime, and then they'll say, you go to jail, we'll take care of your family, or we'll do this or that. And the bottom line is that they use them like a chess match. They're the pawns, and they end up being sacrificed over and over and over again. So the truth of the matter is that those people are out there selling. Now, one of the issues that is serious about this, and I'm not going to go into the drug law activity. You can look at that yourself. But what I do want to share with you is this, as we finish up here, we got a couple more minutes, is very seriously. And what I kept saying earlier, that these laws being passed, dealing with all of the situations and circumstances, so what, is it more laws that's going to take? No. You're going to have to take away the market themselves. You're going to have to take away the junkies, pretty much, the consumers. And if the consumers are taken away, and so what happens too often in our criminal justice system is that these individuals are locked up, and then they go to prison or jail, and they meet some of these people who operate behind bars even, the leaders of the gangs and the leaders of the higher-ups of the drug business, and they continue to run, like that El Chapo situation, and so the point of the matter is this. They have their lords and their people continuing to operate. But the individuals that go in, they end up losing. And then they come out, they still not going to get promoted because they serve time. They're going to come out and they're going to want their jobs back. And sometimes they're already been replaced. And the gangs say, no, and they're expendable. And they'll kill them. They'll kill them. They'll do that even. It's that bad. So anyway, the bottom line is that people who end up going to jail a lot of times are your junkies, are your people who are prostitutes, people who find themselves in down and out situations, who commit theft, who commit robbery, commit burglaries in order to get money to be able to survive and live. And unfortunately, those individuals will be the recidivists or the repeat offenders because there's no treatment that takes place. Now, one of the things that you'll hear me talking about later, and I'll just kind of throw it out for right now, is that those individuals who are not going to determine that they won't need help or want help will continue like gerbils on a wheel. They go in, they come out, and actually when they come out, they're worse. And they keep going on,
And either one or two things are going to happen. They're going to go back in or they're going to die. They're going to OD or either they're going to get killed. One or the other, trying to commit an offense. I had a young man I represented who was a serious drug user, and he had multiple offenses and with residential burglaries. So why was he doing those? So that he can get money, sell stuff, and make money to get his drugs. So he would buy it from the dealers, but he would have to sell the stuff to get the money to pay. Or the dealers would give him a break, and then he'd have to come up with the money and pay, or they would kill him. So anyway, it was problematic. So this young man, actually, I started representing him. He was in custody, and I told his family, do not bail him out, because if you do, it's not going to be good. Well, long story short is they did bail him out against my advice. When they bailed him out, within a few days after he was out, he left the house, attempted to do a burglary, ran across a major highway or expressway, and on the other side of town, and then the police pursued him in a chase. He tried to get back home safely, jumped over the fence, ran back across the highway, got halfway across, and was hit by a truck and two cars and was killed. But the reason why he was killed is because he was trying to get his habit satisfied. And it wasn't something that he wanted to do, but he was hooked on the drugs. And so what's the solution then? And we're going to talk about it more and more, is getting help for these people. I today had the opportunity to attend a session that I attend every year, Midwest Security and Police Conference, sponsored by the Chiefs of Police, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. And I get a chance to spend time with law enforcement, have a chance to go to sessions where they talk about new things that are coming forth. Now today I learned about something in a seminar called Police Interventions to Combat the Opioid Crisis, which we are having, and we're going to be talking about that and more. That kind of pretty much covers some of the things, not necessarily crack, but it covers heroin and things of that nature, and we're going to be talking about that even more throughout this quarter. And they talked about avenues which were very interesting. Our chief of police was talking in one of our suburban communities, and Illinois has some legislation that's pending to encourage other agencies to do this. And this would be something that is very, very, very interesting diversion. But they came up with this idea of deflection. And deflection is that people could come in, they could turn themselves in to the police, they could have crack pipes, they could have all kinds of drugs on them, but and they come in because they forget they had them, and then rather than being arrested and charged, they would say, I want help, and then they would get them the help. Lawyers are involved to help their clients. Prosecutors are involved. Hospitals are involved, and various. But I'm going to have more details coming up. But I said, man, this is really, really something. I sat there intensely listening to the presentation, talking about the legislation that is trying to not get to the heart of increasing arrests, not locking people up, but actually having, listen to this, the police not charging people, not fingerprinting them, but sending them to get help. Now that's revolutionary, but it's something that I'm going to learn more about, and we're going to talk about that more in the weeks to come. But I said to the chief today, and I said to the organization that sponsored it, I said, wow, this is really heading in the right direction. I learned that I was involved in a program to help educate individuals who were arrested for nonviolent offenses, that if they didn't have their GEDs, that in a program called Probation Challenge, that the judge could offer the opportunity for those individuals
to receive probation, and if they went and completed their program and got their GED, that they would then have the charges would be dismissed, people, dismissed, as if they never existed. And then those individuals, many of them who took them up on that, went on to, yeah, exactly, exactly. That is why you hear me preach and teach rehabilitation. That is exactly where I'm at, and that's where I think that that's the way we're going to meet the issue. Good call, Shannon. Good call. Is that we're gonna begin to cut into it, not by locking people up and releasing them. I mean, that's like wearing clothes and they get dirty and you wash them again. Wearing clothes and get dirty, you wash them again. Then you throw them away. Then you go buy new clothes and they get dirty and you wash them. So it's the same kind of thing. So what we're doing is recycling individuals. So this, though, is doing two things. With all the laws that are being passed, if, again, back to the point that I made, the premise is that if you eliminate or cut into the market, in other words, people are not going to do it. Let me use an example here. Okay, there are stores up here in this area. We have chain stores that are malls and other places that are closing down. I'm talking about up here. We have Macy's, we have Targets, and you have some of these in your area. And these stores, even this, Sam's Club, Walmarts are there, but the other companies are, we had a big store chain called Dominic's here in Illinois that completely shut down, completely. But what caused that to happen is because a new approach was given to the consumer, and they called that online shopping. And who is the leader in that? Can you tell me the name of the company that's leading that? You know the name of the company? There we go. Point. Perfect. That is exactly correct. Amazon. Amazon is creating major problems because it's a new approach. Well, I'm saying the same exact thing, applying that to the situation with individuals. Let's not go with the old way. Let's not. And then listen to me. We're not taking people and locking them up and then putting them on parole or probation or something. We're saying you come in for help. We're not going to arrest you. We're not going to charge you. Hey, listen, guys, there are judges that are involved. Like I said, they're working in partnership with hospitals and other organizations that can treat individuals for using drugs. And man, that's revolutionary. And today I was so excited by that. I couldn't wait to get here tonight to share this with you guys, so that this was new. But again, I'm waiting for when I get the PowerPoints from the session that we had. They've given me permission to use those PowerPoints in my class, and I'm going to pass that on to you guys. And it's going to make this class already interesting. But I said, whoa, this is awesome. And this is happening right here in the great state of Illinois. There are other areas that are happening, but this like blew me away. I mean, I sat there and listened to a chief of police in a town that he talked about that. And listen to this. Here's the kicker. He said, we don't care if you're one of our residents or in our area. He says, there are people who have come. One lady, he said, brought her son from Mississippi and turned him into the program here. Said, would you help him? He wants to be helped. And he's getting the help. And they were talking about the fact that people were going in a new direction when they were completing these programs. He was saying that, and I'm going to find out more about it. HBO did a special on it, and I'm going to try to find out more details and present that to you guys. But anyway, I'm a little over my time, but that we're dealing with the issue of all these laws. I think that that's exciting. Now, somebody says, well, well, guess what, people? I got to tell you this. I remember when I was in law school and I graduated in 78, some people approached me, started talking to me about getting involved and investing in this thing that's going to really turn big. They say people are going to be doing all kinds of things with it. So they're going to be paying bills with it. They're going to be banking with it. They're going to even send documents back and forth. And that thing is called the World Wide Web, Internet. It's here. It's taking place. And it's how we're operating. Hey, how about looking at that the same way? And somebody says, I remember I said, oh, that don't sound right. That's exactly what, I don't say that anymore. And I started to look at the good side of it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. If I see progress, and I saw progress listening to this people, and I'm going to be pursuing this even more, learning more about it, because I want to bring it to our students who are heading toward law enforcement careers, who are heading toward being drug counselors, who are heading in human services, who are heading to be correction officers and parole officers. And that excites me. And so, anyway, I'm sorry. It's 7:42, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm excited. I am ecstatic about it. And again, so the seminar was entitled Police Intervention to Combat Opioid Crisis, Exploring Deflection, Diversion, and Post-Opioid Overdose Response Options. They already have these drugs, I always say it wrong, Noxalone or whatever it is. I can't, anyway, you'll hear about it in the class. I always mix up the name of the drug. These are the drugs that people who've overdosed, and they can come and actually get a dose of this. It's a very expensive thing, but it actually arrests and stops the effects of the drug. And if they get it early enough, they survive. I mean, these are things like, whoa, so, and then the last thing I'm going to say is not related to this session. I met a person who I talked about in the last quarter, who conducted a seminar on the Romeoville campus of Rasmussen, where we all went. I met someone today who provided me with a book that was written by this person. And I said, oh, I was excited. And this person in the book, and I'm going to talk about that. And I might even try to see if I can get him in on a session to come in and have you guys to hear it. I'm working. We don't have many weeks. Next week we'll be halfway through. So, but anyway, with that, I'm going to say good night to you. But I want you to take this word, crack cocaine. I don't want you to take crack cocaine, but that's the phrase that I'm looking for. Okay, and thank you, and you have a good evening, all you guys. I will see you next week. Like I said again, I'm on fire. I'm excited. I got another lecture to do at 8:30. But good night, you guys, and get your assignments in. You have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Okay.